Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you on this Tuesday, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Fun show coming up today. We got plenty to get to. Week one of the NFL season is in the books. We're going to start talking about some Monday Night Football. Later on in the show, I came up with a segment here because the old adage is week one is a liar. So I've come up with 6 storylines. We're going to say if it's a lie or if it's legit. NFL week one lies or legit. Spent a lot of time trying to come up with what the other word was going to be other than lies. So we'll also talk some college football. It is a big weekend in the state of Tennessee. I mean, week 3, usually you don't see big SEC matchups like this, but you've got Tennessee, Georgia in Neyland, and you got Vandy, South Carolina out in Columbia. So we're going to talk about those games, some of the other big games coming up later this weekend, and of course, lots of Titans talk today. And Brian Callahan yesterday in the press conference. We went off the air yesterday about 30 minutes before his press conference, and we're speculating about what he might say. I don't think I would have guessed it would have gone the way that it did. So we'll get into that as well. But I did want to start with some Monday Night Football reaction because we have the world's biggest Viking hater in studio today, and Nick Frazier said that the Minnesota Vikings were going to go 4-13. And to be fair, about 75% of that game, it looked like they were going to be a 0-1.
It did.
J.J. McCarthy did not look good. He threw a pick 6. I was ready to come in here and talk about the comparison between J.J. McCarthy and Cam Ward and say, like, that is a guy, J.J. McCarthy, who looked like the moment was too big for him. Cam Ward on Sunday in Denver did not look like the moment was too big for him. And then J.J. McCarthy comes out and just absolutely deals in the second half and wins the game.
Yeah, first I want to apologize to all Vikings fans out there if I offended you last week with my prediction of 4-13, especially Viking Matt and Skyler.
Yeah, Viking Matt.
It wasn't out of malice. It's just when you start clicking the buttons and the games start matching up, that's what happened. It turned out to 4-13, so apologies there. But on the J.J. McCarthy front, I guess, and, Kevin O'Connell, going to give him his flowers. I mean, I wasn't too sure on the coaching guru until the J.J. McCarthy experience. I had to believe it to see it, and obviously saw it in the second half. It all unfolded. So congrats to the Vikings for their week 1 win. But overall, J.J. McCarthy, I think, is going to work out now.
Yeah, I mean, it did not look good for JJ in the first half. He looked lost out there, looked in over his head, and that was I had fully prepared for that to be our first segment today, and he turned it around. On the opposite side, Caleb Williams, that first drive of the game, I was sitting there going, "Oh my goodness, like this is the Caleb Williams the Bears thought they were drafting." He was 6 for 6 for 51 yards and then ran for a touchdown. He had the great rolling right play and just threw a dart to Rome Odunze on the sideline. It all looked good for Caleb Williams in the first drive or two. And then, the offense fell apart. They only scored 3 points from the first drive of the game until the last drive of the game. And the pick 6 obviously was in there too.
Yeah, I don't know what to look at when it comes to the second half. Was the Vikings offense that good, or was Bears offense just where'd they go?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I was just so confused about. Now, nonetheless, like the Bears defense did show up for the most part. Just that second half, all they had was that pick 6 drive, and that was really it. I think everything else kind of fell off. The wheels fell off for the most part.
Yeah, and the Bears are a very interesting team, and we talked about it. We did our preview last week, and they're a team with a lot of talent. Like, you look at their wide receivers, they got DeAndre Swift at running back, who's still an above-average player. You got 2 good tight ends. The offensive line is supposed to be solidified. And on that first drive, it looked like it was all clicking, but it is about consistency. We talked about this last year with Brian Callahan of the scripted plays always seem to work for Brian Callahan. Like, the first drive always kind of looked good. Like, they scored on the first drive against the Bears last year, I believe. The Tony Pollard run on that drive. So it was like they kind of had the early scripted portion of the offense on lock. But once they got into where Brian Callahan actually had to make decisions, it kind of fell apart. And I think that was kind of what happened with Ben Johnson last night. It was the offense looked crisp for the stuff they had prepared for, But once the Vikings started to make some adjustments, Brian Flores obviously is a great defensive coordinator. They just couldn't keep up. And, heck of a comeback from the Vikings. We got two really good primetime games to wrap up week one. Really, in all 4 primetime games were good this weekend. Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. So, couldn't ask for much of a better week one in the NFL season.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think one little part of the Chicago Bears offense that will eventually come to being better at is adding Luther Burden as a true weapon. They used him a lot last night in the special teams aspect of it, kickoff return, punt return. There were 1 or 2 plays where they had him as it's almost like a wide receiver screen or just a little slot off to the side, and it were negative yards, unfortunately. But I think once you start incorporating him, like you're talking about, adjusting on the fly to what the defense shows at you, I think you can start adding Luther Burden into the mix for that and that type of stuff, because a lot of teams don't have NFL tape on them.
Right.
I think a lot of teams have tape on Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, not a lot on Colston Loveland, which I thought they should have targeted him a little bit more as well. I think you have to really start using a lot of those rookie assets and early on in the season, because when teams have a lot more film on them, then you can go back to your old reliables and your veterans.
Yes, for sure. And, I think the Bears will be a decent team this year, but they did show some of the flaws that they have of just, some inexperience, and we'll see what they can do moving forward. Jay from Laverne on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says JJ was a monster at Michigan. And to be honest, I think his injury last year that kept him out helped him because he sat for a year. And I agree. I think it was good that he got a chance to sit behind Sam Darnold because they had that structure in place for him already. I think he probably would have sat the whole year last year, even if he was healthy. But maybe that's part of why he struggled to start yesterday's game. That is the first full game he's played since the national championship against Washington a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So, there was some rust to shake off. He looked really good in the second half. And I'm not a huge JJ McCarthy believer. I know you're not a big JJ McCarthy believer, but I will eat some crow and say I think he looked a lot better than I expected him to last night.
Absolutely. And that Texture's point about him just sitting out that whole first year, it's just learning through osmosis. And I feel like Sam Darnold was learning along with JJ McCarthy last season, because Kevin O'Connell seems to just know it all in some regard when it comes to quarterbacks. Like I am wholeheartedly saying, yeah, he is a quarterback guru now. And looking at the Titans a little bit, I feel like the Titans wish they had what the Vikings had in Kevin O'Connell. That's probably what they thought they were getting, because Brian Callahan had stated, Matthew Stafford, Peyton Manning, all these great quarterbacks. And then, this all transpires in week one against Denver. What are we getting? The Dollar General version of Kevin O'Connell? Like, what's going on here?
Right. And with Kevin O'Connell, he is literally the exact definition of what Brian Callahan was when he got hired. He was an offensive coordinator who didn't call plays. He was Sean McVay's offensive coordinator when the Vikings hired him. And that's what the Titans were hoping for, that it's like, yeah, this guy doesn't have play calling experience, but he can be that quarterback guru. And I just wonder if maybe you looked at the quarterbacks that he quote unquote developed.
Right.
And maybe he wasn't as big of a part of it as we thought. Like, he was with Peyton Manning in Denver. Peyton Manning was pretty developed at that point. Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow may just be that good of a player. So I don't know. I'm not 100% giving up on Brian Callahan, but you're right. Like, Kevin O'Connell has shown it that doesn't really matter who his quarterback is. He's going to turn them into a capable player in the NFL. Right now, it feels like Brian Callahan can't help out his quarterbacks at all.
And to that point as well, you look at Cam Ward against Denver, and even Callahan said it in his press conference after the game and on Monday yesterday that Cam Ward did a good job of adjusting to certain blitzes, certain sets.
Yeah.
And I think that's more of a credit to Cam Ward than it is to Brian Callahan.
Cam Ward was in control of the line of scrimmage. Like, that is one thing that you could see, is that he recognized what the defense was trying to do, and he was able to communicate that well. But it also was pretty chaotic watching him order people around. It's like, shouldn't some of the wide receivers have known where they were supposed to be? And I know Brian Callahan addressed it, and he basically brushed it off and was like, if you can point those out to me, I'd be happy to explain it to you. But anyway, I thought Cam Ward was in control on Sunday afternoon, but obviously it didn't help the Titans get the win. And Brian Callahan seemed to be impressed with what Cam Ward was able to do on Sunday. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have any thoughts, you can text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. It's time for Elbow Gate Day 2. And I understand. I listened to Robbie and Rex Road on the way in, and Robbie was getting a little upset with some texters saying, move on. Don't talk about this anymore. It's not that big of a deal. It is a big deal. Your head coach should know the rules. We're not going to spend an hour on it, but the response that he had at the press conference needs to be talked about. We will get to that coming up next. Nick Frazier in today alongside Parker Kelly, Jake Lyman, next man up here on 102.5 The Game.
Coach in the NFL play's been around for a long time, and
hold on, go ahead, John. Start over.
Yeah, on the Iron Manor play, I mean that rule has been in effect for a long time. I guess in retrospect, are you surprised yourself that you didn't know the correct interpretation of that rule?
Yeah, I think I got a little more clarity on it now at this point. At the end of the day, those things happen really fast. And you're starting to get ready for the next play call, and you're waiting on information from what the look looks like. And look, I misspoke on it after the game, and I'll own that. I'm aware of the rules. I understand the rules. Just, again, a mistake that I made that I gotta correct, just like I'd ask our players to.
That was Brian Callahan yesterday, clarifying why he did not challenge when Elikai Manor made a leap and grab right around midfield on 1st and 20. He got an elbow inbounds, ruled incomplete, and the Titans just went merrily along and ran their next play. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Nick, Brian Callahan tied himself in knots yesterday. And honestly, I thought his response in his opening statement was exactly what he needed to say. Just say, I messed up. It's on me. I misinterpreted the rule, and just try and move on. People are going to remember this for a long time because it is not every day that an NFL head coach does not know a rule. And this isn't like, not to bring up Mike Vrabel, but like Vrabel knowing the rule of like the Patriots playoff.
The false start.
Yeah. Right. The false start and the delay of game, and then you can keep running clock. Like, it's not an obscure rule. This comes up at least once a week in the NFL of any body part other than the feet equals 2 feet. And Brian Callahan said clearly in his post-game press conference, well, an elbow doesn't equal 2 feet. Those were his exact words. And to say he misinterpreted the rule, I think that was the only way to say it, that, it's on me, my mistake. But then he says in that clip, I misspoke. And like, you didn't misspeak. You said it pretty clearly. An elbow doesn't equal 2 feet. He needed to get a foot down. And that cannot happen as an NFL head coach. It cannot happen. And again, it's one mistake. It's week 1, but it was also an accumulation of things on Sunday. That one was just the most egregious thing that he did on Sunday in that game in Denver.
Yeah. I mean, even in that same clip that we returned with, he said, I understand it a little bit better. Like, even when you say, I understand it a little bit better, but then you say you misspoke, you're still contradicting yourself in the same thing you just said there.
Right. And to say, like, I understand the rules pretty well, it's like, clearly you didn't. And it's not like this is an obscure rule that comes up once a year or once every 2 years. This is catches on the sideline happen all the time. And you have to know when something is a catch. Amani Hooker, you can see in the clip, Amani Hooker comes running in, pointing at his elbow and saying, like, Elikai Manor got his elbow in. If Amani Hooker knows the rule, your head coach should know the rule.
Yeah, he should. It reminds me of that scene from The Office where Jim's asked to give the new guy the rundown. Hey, give me a rundown real quick. He's asking everybody around the office, well, what's a rundown? What's a rundown? Same thing with Callahan. Like, it's almost in his head, probably thinking, oh, what's the 2-foot rule? What's the elbow rule here? Because he said earlier yesterday that he didn't want to throw anybody under the bus in his opening statement.
Right.
Who's the other coach? Because if that's the case for me, if it's, the review team or
Paul Kaharski asked the question yesterday about Rob, who is the rules guy who's supposed to be in his ear. It's a failure on Brian Callahan. Ultimately, the buck stops with Brian Callahan. He is the head coach. He's got the red flag in his back pocket. Like, it is his fault. But the fact that no one came up to him and told him to challenge that is a failure of the entire staff. I also want to bring up, like, Brian Callahan almost made another crucial mistake. And again, we weren't on headset, so we don't 100% know this, but it looked like after that 70-yard return from Tim Dike that Cam Ward was going onto the field and was waiting on a play call from Brian Callahan. And Bones Fossil had to run down and hold up 3 to make sure he went and kicked the field goal instead of running a play with 6 seconds left on the clock. It's like Brian Callahan should be able to make these decisions by himself, but you needed somebody like Bones Fossil on that play to run to Brian Callahan or get in his ear and say, hey, that's worth a challenge.
Yeah, it's almost like obviously you mentioned there's a little bit of a lack of communication, but with the young guys, there's a lack of communication through this whole entire organization. Like, from play calling to knowing left from right, I just feel like Callahan is listening to too many people. You know what I mean? I think listening to the offensive coordinator, Nick Holtz, too much, maybe listening to Bill Hardegree too much. And luckily, like you said, John Fossil was there to help out with that whole situation. And he seems like the only competent guy that really is knowing football right now.
Well, and it goes back to him being a play caller. And I understand that is, I think Ian said it best on the last show on Robbie Rexroad, that you bring in a head coach who is a play caller because you don't want to lose your play caller. If you have an offensive coordinator who is a good play caller, he's going to get scooped up and made a head coach somewhere else. So I understand that. But on that 1st and 20, Alec Manor gets called out of bounds. It's called incomplete. Well, Brian Callahan not only has to think about whether to challenge it, but he's got to call the next play too. It's like if he was just the head coach, he could make that decision. Maybe that should be Nick Holt's job. Like, hey, Nick Holtz, get in Brian Callahan's ear if you think something you should challenge, because you're not really doing much else at that point, I don't think. Like, you're not calling plays. I'm sure Nick Holtz has plenty of responsibilities, but at that point, there's nothing pressing on him. Like, shouldn't that be something maybe he's looking for?
He should be.
I don't know. Like, that's somebody has to tell Brian Callahan there to challenge. And it is a failure to not know the rules and to come out and blatantly in your press conference and say the rules wrong. It is a failure. It's week 1, but I'll make the point that last year when Matt Eberflus messed up the clock management at the end and everyone thought it was so egregious, this is way worse than that. What Brian Callahan did on Sunday, not just this instance, but the end of half sequence, throwing the ball 3 times, and everything that went on Sunday, that was a worse coaching performance from Brian Callahan than Matt Eberflus in that Thanksgiving Day game against the Lions.
100% agree.
But that game was in prime time in November, and Matt Eberflus got fired. I'd make the point, if this game happened in week 10, Brian Callahan would not have a job right now.
Yeah, it'd be Monday. You're cleaning your office immediately.
Well, Titans fire people on Tuesday.
Well, that's right. Sorry. My bad. Monday, you're cleaning stuff out. They make the announcement Tuesday. How about that?
Yes. I mean, I think it was a disaster on Sunday. And if this happened 2 months later, I think he would have gotten fired for what happened on Sunday. But you can't fire a head coach after week 1 because then it looks bad on the organization for giving him the entire offseason with this team. So he's going to get a chance to try and redeem himself, but it really couldn't have gone worse in week 1 for Brian Callahan. Because again, I talked about this with Parker yesterday of it's not just the decisions he made in the game that were bad. He also spent the entire offseason preaching no self-inflicted negatives. And you had 130 yards of penalties, including a personal foul on one of your captains in a moment where you could not give them a first down. Like, you cannot have those issues when you spent the entire offseason saying you're trying to mitigate them.
Yeah, and I go back to the whole point you talk about the offseason. The whole point system game thing, that's for high school sissies. Forget about that. You're a professional football coach. You need to get down to the nitty-gritty, hand in the mud, and actually play football. You need to go through your plays week in and week out, go through walkthroughs, do all that. I'm sure they are, but it needs to be a little bit more in-depth. I think this has been handled a little bit too loosely this past offseason. I think Brian Callahan, and I'm kind of with the camp of the Titans probably should have moved on from him because there was that story that came out from, I think, Jeremy Fowler in Tehran.
Right, saying that they considered it.
Yeah, they considered. If you considered it and you're seeing this performance after week 1, you should have went with your gut feeling there.
Right.
And I'm still in the same camp of back in the spring when I said in the offseason, 1-5, 1-6, Callahan's out of here, man.
Yeah.
If it ends up like that, he's gone.
That Patriots game is now looking like, I think that's the earliest that he would get fired.
Mhm.
I think it'll be the bye week if things continue to trend in this direction or don't trend better, because he's got to show exponential growth fast. Like, this week has to be way better than what happened on Sunday in Denver. We have multiple texters, Robert and Mike from Las Casas, on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com, saying maybe someone did tell Callahan to challenge the call. Robert says someone did tell him to challenge. Amani Hooker did. Now, how bad would that be if we found out, and we'll never find this out, that Rob or one of his coordinators was in his ear and said, challenge it. He got his elbow down, and Brian Callahan said, no, an elbow doesn't count as 2 feet.
Wow.
Like, if he was the one who just didn't understand the rule and overruled somebody and didn't challenge, that would be way worse.
Yeah, and it's a twofold situation because one, it shows you don't trust your players, and two, you take your judgment over somebody else's. And I look at it as if he's a captain, trust your captain.
Yeah.
Just trust him.
Well, I mean, like, and
Vrabel did. When Vrabel was here, he would trust his players to make those decisions.
well, it's like we don't know if Amani Hooker actually went and talked to Brian Callahan, but like you see in the clip that he's pointing to his elbow. If Amani Hooker noticed it, somebody else should have noticed it too, right? And you saw a bunch of staff members, I don't know who they were, going catch. And I get on the sideline, if it's your team, it's a catch.
Right.
But like, it was worth a challenge. Your offense was struggling at that point, and you finally got an explosive play to get across midfield. It was 1st and 20. Like, what are the odds that that drive turns out to be anything on 2nd and 20? Not very good. But if you challenge it, it at least gives you a chance. I understand you don't want to lose that timeout, but Sean Payton wasn't caring about timeouts on Sunday. Sean Payton challenged 3 times, 4 times, and most of them ended up being right. But like the Gunnar Helm one, was that obvious to anyone that wasn't a catch?
Yeah, I'd say so. He had what, 1 foot in, right? He was laying
no. So he caught it, and Singleton moved the ball at the last second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're talking about different.
Like he moved it at the last second, and he didn't bring the ball in fully and completely before he stepped out of bounds. But in the 20 seconds that Sean Payton had, do you think that he got a definite yes, that is incomplete? No, because it was that close. But he trusted his guy. He knew that was a big play, and he challenged it. It ended up working out. Titans would have been set up in the red zone if that was a catch. Instead, they had to settle for a field goal. So it was horrible from Brian Callahan on Sunday, and it has to be better immediately. Like if you come out of Sunday's game and you still have, I really doubt you're going to have 130 yards of penalties again. But if penalties are a main reason you lose on Sunday, and there's another game management issue, whether that's play calling, whether that's challenge, whether that's clock management, I think the conversation starts to become when, not if, Brian Callahan gets fired.
Yeah, I'm sure those conversations are already happening for the most part. And to the whole point about Sean Payton and challenging plays and just that whole just game in general, Denver handed them that game. There were a handful of times where Brian Callahan could have capitalized on some of his play calling, and he didn't. To me, it was a little predictable. I know we'll get into that a little later on, but that stuff infuriates me, and I try to just keep a cool head about it. But the Titans, to me, it bothers me to know that their head coach doesn't know the X's and O's for the most part when it comes to stuff like that. Or just, I guess, he knows the X's and O's. It's just the game planning situation.
Right. Well, and it's one really bad example of not knowing the rules. I am sure Brian Callahan is, like he said, I know the rules of this game pretty well. I'm sure he does. But to not know that rule in that moment is horrible. It really is. And again, it's week 1, so he's not getting fired. He's going to have a chance to prove that it was a fluke. But based on what we saw last year, you're now 3-15. Like, I'm trending in the direction that it wasn't a fluke. It's just a continuation of things we saw last year.
It's going to be tough to right the wrongs in week 2 because we all know this LA team is not a team to mess with.
No.
They mean business.
Yep. Going to be another tough challenge on Sunday. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, you can text or call our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll continue the conversation coming up next. How can things get better this week? What do we need to see from Brian Callahan to feel like this isn't going to be a complete disaster of a season and that he'll be gone? And kind of in the same vein as Ken Wisenhunt, like fired early, halfway through the season, and Titans have to go with an interim guy for most of the rest of the year in Cam Ward's rookie season. We'll talk about that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Later today on ESPN 94.9, The Fan, the Nashville Sounds take on the Gwinnett Stripers at First Horizon Park with first pitch at 6:35. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9, The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game.
Yeah, that's all I can really add to that.
Asked about the 2 sacks after the muffed punt yesterday. You said you needed to see him.
Yeah.
Did Cam have places to go that were safe on those 2 plays?
Yeah, there was. Those, we got beat pretty quick. And, it's also, I'm not going to put that all on Cam. I think the pressure was happening fast, and the ball on both those plays could have definitely had quicker answers, certainly. The first one would have been tough. The outlet there in that particular throw would have been to Tony, and Tony got stuck trying to get out. That ball's got to go to the back. And then the third down play, hard to say that that's on Cam. That pressure came pretty quickly. We were in a spot where, generally speaking, was expecting some potential heavy pressure on that fringe area to see if they could try to knock us out and/or have us force the ball out quick. So we called the max protection. They didn't bring the pressure, and we didn't get the execution of the protection, in that moment as good as we would have liked. So those things, again, when they don't work and those things happen, it's the criticisms are all fair. And ultimately, I got to do a better job at helping put Cam in a better spot.
That was Brian Callahan yesterday talking about Cam Ward, the 2 sacks that knocked him out of field goal range after the muff punt. And in general, they have to do a better job of helping Cam Ward out. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Brian Callahan, he had a bad game on Sunday. And I said in the last segment that I think if that game happened in November, he probably doesn't have a job right now. But it's September. He's going to get chances to redeem himself. And I think that is the most important thing for us to see on Sunday. And it's not just Brian Callahan. The rest of the offense, they got to help Cam out. Like, nobody helped Cam on Sunday. And I don't think Cam played a perfect game. I gave him a C+ yesterday. But nobody gave him any assistance. I think it was 5 drops total. And not all of them were easy catches. But I think it was 5 drops, 3 of them from Calvin Ridley. And then you had the 2 plays. We just talked about the Aya Manor that should have been challenged, and Gunnar Helm where the ball gets knocked out. Like, you complete those 7 passes, maybe this is a different game. Or even you complete 4 of those 7 passes, maybe it's a different game. And they've got to do a better job around Cam Ward, because I saw a tweet yesterday because there were a lot of cut-ups being thrown out of Cam Ward's day on Sunday. And I forget who it was, but somebody tweeted out a video and said, are we getting the real life example of what if Mahomes got drafted to the Bears? And I'm not saying Cam Ward is Patrick Mahomes, but that is the risk you run of, like, do you finally have a talented quarterback and you're just going to ruin him because you don't have the coach and you don't have the players around him?
It's very possible. I think they are on that trajectory. Now that you mentioned that, I didn't even see that online. That is a very good comparison. Cam Ward is a really good talent, and possibly could damage his future, because this offensive line right now with JC Latham, whatever that status is on him at right tackle, and then you have Dan Moore Jr., who, not a lot of people talked about him in the offseason, and now there's some question marks around him.
Well, it's funny because, like, Dan Moore, he looked good in the preseason training camp. The best thing about Dan Moore is no one was bringing him up because he looked solid. And the first half, at the very least, in Denver, he was not good.
Mm-hmm.
Benito was getting by him consistently. He got called for a hold at one point, I think. It wasn't good from Dan Moore. It was game 1 against a really good defense. Nick Benito, maybe one of the more underrated players in the NFL. Like, he doesn't get a whole lot of national attention, but that's a really good pass rusher that they had to go against. Guess what? It's not going to get any easier. You're facing Jared Verse coming up on Sunday against the Rams. This offensive line has to be better. And you're right, we won't find out about JC Latham's status
opportunity of, limited participants, get ready for the game, whatever. Just just be ready for whoever's, healthy on Tuesday, because when it comes to Sunday, you have to bring your A game against this Rams defense.
Yeah.
You have to.
And Brian Callahan, the way he talked about JC Latham yesterday didn't sound encouraging. Because he said, the one that we have to keep an eye on the most is JC. This is something he's been dealing with for a while. And it's that always, when they say it's something they've been dealing with and it's kind of been consistent, sounds like an IR stint. I'm not saying that, but like that's kind of how it goes of like, do we want to put him on IR right now, give him a month and get him back healthy? Or do we want to keep trying to fight through it and hope it doesn't get worse? I'm not saying like he could be a full participant on Wednesday. I have no idea.
Right.
But just the way he answered that question doesn't sound like it's going to be. I would guess he doesn't play Sunday.
Yeah, it didn't sound optimistic. That's a great way to put it, Jake. I'm all in the camp of just start Ali Udo, see what happens. Because look, I look at this Titans roster as front loaded, where the starters are the guys that are going to be your breadwinners. But your depth is not there. And we all knew this going into the upcoming season. The depth's not there defensively and offensively. Like both ways, it's just not there.
Yep.
So when you are kind of left on a stranded island on key, positions, especially at the tackle position, right tackle, we all thought would be okay because of Jason Latham.
Right.
Now that he's hurt, you got a turnstile in Ali Udo. I mean, it looked bad.
Yeah. I mean, you saw as soon as Latham left the game, Vance Joseph just sent pressure on every play. And Cam dealt with it fine at some points. Like on the last drive of the game, Cam Ward stood in there against the blitz and delivered. His receivers dropped the ball. It has to be better. And it starts with Brian Callahan. I think the number one thing you need to see from Brian Callahan on Sunday is just better feel for the rhythm of the game. Like penalties are going to be big, but Brian Callahan in a game can't control when his team commits a penalty. And challenges and timeouts are always important, but you don't know if there's going to be a big moment where you need to challenge a play. But he needs to have a better feel as a play caller and a coach for when you need to be aggressive, when you need to be conservative. The two sequences that should have been completely flipped on Sunday, at the goal line on your own 7, end of the first half, run the ball into the line 3 times and get to the locker room. When you force a fumble, the second interception, Xavier Woods interception, you're set up in opponent's territory. Take a chance. Sudden change, go try and make a play. Instead, they ran Julius Chestnut on 3rd down and kicked a field goal. He's got to have a better feel for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a rhythm thing for sure. And we mentioned earlier about the tackles, and we'll get more into the offensive line, but something I want to make the comparison of when Mike Vrabel was here in Nashville and had Derrick Henry as the bell cow. To me, Vrabel used those tight ends as extra offensive linemen. And that's something I feel like the Titans have gone away from, especially under Brian Callahan. This has been pass first, then run. And we've kind of seen the predictability of plays like you're talking about with rhythm. Tony Pollard, we all saw those run plays that would be run on first down and then throw here, throw there. Like it was too predictable.
Yeah.
And Denver caught up to that. Get back to some of those old habits that made the engine run here in Tennessee.
And the Broncos defense is really good. It's not quite as good on the back end. Like you don't have Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss.
Yeah.
Bookending cornerbacks. So you maybe have a chance to take some shots on Sunday. Can the offensive line hold up? That's the question. Because you got Jared first. You've got
Byron Young.
Byron Young, who is Jared versus teammate at Florida State. Braden Fisk.
Yep, Braden.
Like that defensive line is just as good, if not better, than what you saw against the Broncos on Sunday.
They ran a lot of stunts against Houston, by the way.
Right. And they held, Titans didn't score a touchdown on Sunday. Neither did Houston. So going to be a tough test, but you got to see improvement. And it's got to start with Callahan just having some rhythm in the game. And you feel like he's got a feel for the flow because he did not on Sunday. And again, that's probably like 3rd or 4th on the priority list of bad things Brian Callahan did on Sunday, but it's got to be better because again, penalties, that's something you teach during the week. You can't control it on game day. Like pre-snap stuff, sure, but stuff's going to happen in the heat of the moment. You can't have 130 yards in penalties again, but you also don't know about challenges and timeouts and stuff. That all is just random as the game goes along. But every game, you have to have a feel and Brian Callahan needs to have a feel on Sunday, because that was a huge part of why Cam Ward statistically didn't have a good game. Yeah, the drops hurt, but it was just like he didn't set Cam Ward up for success on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't want to jump the gun on this question to you, Jake, but if the Titans don't score a touchdown against the Rams and they lose in bad fashion, like we're saying by 2 scores or maybe 3 scores, let's go 3 scores. Is the clock now ticking quicker? Like, would you say maybe pull the trigger on saying bye-bye quicker than people think?
Let's talk about it coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. You can text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you on this Tuesday edition of Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Wrapping up hour number one here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. Talking Titans. It was a rough one on Sunday, 20-12 against the Broncos. Brian Callahan catching a lot of flack, especially for the challenge that he did not make on Alec Imaner's 20-yard catch on the sideline. An elbow does, in fact, equal 2 feet. And Brian Callahan kind of twisted himself into a pretzel yesterday trying to answer the questions about that challenge. You asked a question of if it looks just as bad on Sunday. Offense doesn't score a touchdown. If there's a lot of penalties, if he makes another bad game management decision, does the clock start ticking a little bit faster? Does the seat get really hot real quick? I think yes, but it's just one of those things in the NFL where you just don't fire a coach this early into the season because, again, it looks bad on the organization for having them there in the first place. And that's why we're talking about it. The Jeremy Fowler article comes out where they say there was serious consideration given to firing Brian Callahan. It's like, man, if there was serious consideration, you should have done it, because now you're stuck where you gave this guy the offseason, preseason, training camp, and it's like if you fire him after 2 weeks, you just wasted a whole preseason of Cam Ward's development with a coach who's not there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Brian Callahan in his press conferences, he seems like a nice guy, right? But to me, it's almost like he's nervous to talk to the media. Like, as a head coach, you can't be nervous.
Yeah,
you got to face the fire.
You could kind of tell there was like a pit in his stomach talking about the Iron Manor stuff yesterday.
Yeah, like he like hesitated, right? He goes, I know the Iron Manor thing.
That's why you all are here.
Yeah, and like when you say stuff like that and you're not truly confident on what you're saying, to me, that just goes to show you there's a lack of inexperience as a head coach, which obviously there is, but just being a second and third year guy, you gotta, I don't know, find more of an established name.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, fire him today, but I'm looking at more of, the 1-5, the 1-6. What if it's 1-3 or 1-4? Like, it may be a 2-week difference.
Right.
Does that really make a difference, do you think? I mean, yes or no?
I don't think the record matters quite as much because, again, I didn't think the Titans were going to win on Sunday, but the way that they lost was just so discouraging because the Broncos tried to lose that game. They did. And because of incompetence by the head coach, you couldn't take advantage. And it wasn't like there were other factors. The players didn't play well either. Wide receivers didn't catch. Offensive line didn't block. But, the head coach was a large reason why you lost that game. The Broncos, a playoff team, that might be the worst game the Broncos play all year. And you still couldn't beat them because you just completely botched the game management. And if it happens again, you don't want to keep him just for the sake of saying we kept him for a certain amount of weeks. But it's like, do you fire him and make Cam Ward play 3 months of his rookie season with an interim head coach, knowing that he's not in the system that he's going to be in next year? Somebody, Skyler made a good point of if Brian Callahan does get fired, what do you think of Mike McCarthy as the head coach?
I wouldn't hate it.
I think that might be the type of coach. It doesn't have to be Mike McCarthy exactly. I know that there are mixed feelings on Mike McCarthy around the NFL, but that is a guy who has been a head coach of a Super Bowl winning team, and he knows how to run an offense. He knows how to develop a quarterback. Maybe that is the type of coach you need, kind of a happy medium between a Mike Vrabel and a Brian Callahan, where it's a guy who has experience and knows how to be the CEO of an NFL franchise, and also a guy who can develop a quarterback. Because Mike Vrabel couldn't develop a quarterback to save his life. Brian Callahan at least has a history of being part of good development of quarterbacks. But he doesn't have the experience and looks like he's in over his head. Maybe a Mike McCarthy type coach is what you would need.
And if it is Mike McCarthy, I'm not trying to bring Chad Brinker into all
right.
this.
That's where the connection would come from.
Yeah, there's that Green Bay connection. So you're thinking, well, I'm killing two birds with one stone. I'm saving, Chad Brinker in some regards, saving money, looking from a more of a front office standpoint. But it reminds me of the situation when Bill Belichick, was fired from New England. They brought Gerard Mayo in. It's like the DeBoer thing. You don't want to be the guy after Saban. You don't want to be the same guy after Belichick. You don't want to be the guy after Vrabel from Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I think Callahan's that middleman, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You got to find some form of precedent in a coach. And I think McCarthy would be a guy. That's a great one by Skylar.
And I know there have been people asking, like, why would anyone want to take the Titans job when they know Amy Adams might fire them after a season and a half? It's like, there are only 32 of these jobs. People are going to take them.
Yeah.
And if you do a good job, you won't get fired. And I don't know, Mike McCarthy, I don't know if it would be perfect, but somebody like that, you need somebody with experience. I don't know if you can do the up and coming coordinator thing again, unless there's like a super hot name out there, like a Ben Johnson. But I think you need to go get someone with experience. Benjamin asks, what about going for Spags from KC, Steve Spagnuolo? I think he's pretty happy to just be the DC in Kansas City. Like, if he was going to leave, he would have been interviewing for some jobs the last couple of years. I don't think I've heard of him interviewing for a job. I think he's content being the defensive guy for Andy Reid in Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's content. He'll probably ride out on the high horse with Andy Reid as well.
Yeah.
On that nice chariot thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's early. Again, Callahan's not fired yet. He has a chance to prove that Sunday was a fluke. But again, with what we've seen from last season and Sunday, it's not trending in the right direction. It's got to be better. And that starts on Sunday with game management, offensive play calling, and everything that goes. Like, he has to look like he's in command as a head coach. He did not look like that on Sunday. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, you can text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We will get back to the Titans in the final hour of the show, but I have a fun game here that I want to try out, because everybody says that week 1 in the NFL is a liar, and it can be true. There are times where last year the Saints scored 47 points in week 1, and everyone thought they might be world beaters. They didn't end up being very good. I have 6 storylines. We're going to spend the next couple of segments going through. Do we think that they are lies or legit? We'll do it coming up next. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Hour number 2, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Spent the full first hour on the Titans. We will get back into the two-tone blue after the disaster class on Sunday in Denver. Although on paper, 20-12 doesn't look horrible, but that's why you don't scout box scores. We'll get back into the Titans in the final hour of the show. I've got a game here because week 1 in the NFL, the old adage is week 1 is a liar. And I've got 6 storylines coming out of NFL week 1. And we're going to go through. Parker, I want to get your thoughts on this too. We are going to go through and pick what are lies, what is legit that we're going to see through the rest of the year. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Number 1, got to start here with our old friend Mike Vrabel. The Patriots, the offseason darlings, everyone picking them to go to the playoffs. I think their over-under in Vegas was like 8.5 wins or something. Honestly, I had them at 10 when we did our predictions last week because the schedule is so easy. But at home on Sunday, they lose to the Raiders 20-13. Are the New England Patriots overhyped, or is it a lie and they're going to be the team that everyone kind of thought they would be?
I'm going to lean towards a lie. I think they are going to be the team that people think they're going to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. Pete Carroll made his return to coaching and being with the Raiders. I feel like he's one of those guys that can outsmart you. And I just think he just had a better play calling game. In all honesty, I think Ashton Genty did a really good job in the backfield. And I mean, hell, they threw to Trey Tucker. I mean, you're throwing to guys that
Pop
you're
Douglas.
like, who?
Yeah.
Like, come on now. So I think New England's just settling in week 1 jitters. Not worried about it.
I'm going to say it's legit. I think the Patriots were overhyped. I like Drake May, and I like Travion Henderson. I think the offensive line is improved with Will Campbell, but I think people jumped the gun on them. Like, I think next year, with another offseason, another draft, another year of development for some of these young guys, like Kyle Williams out of Washington State, and everybody, the draft class looks good. But as rookies, you can't really expect them to lead you to a playoff spot. I think they were overhyped. And, you lose to the Raiders in week 1. This is a big week for Mike Vrabel because the Dolphins looked absolutely atrocious on Sunday against the Colts. Like, if there was one head coach whose seat is hotter than Brian Callahan, it's Mike McDaniel. And they're going to Miami to face the Dolphins. If you don't look good in that game, I think things could go off the rails for the Patriots pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it, but I mean, you just gotta wait. I think it's a wait and see.
Yeah. Parker, are the Patriots overhyped, lie or legit?
This season, yes, because I did a fun exercise the other day. I went through the Patriots schedule and I looked at the betting odds, and the Patriots are favored in 11 of 17 games this year. 11 of 17 games. Now, I understand everybody loves Mike Vrabel nationally, but I think in year 1, we're all a little too quick to pull the trigger on hyping up the Patriots. In the future, I think they will get it right.
Right.
Under Drake May and with more drafts, and they definitely won the offseason with all the free agents they brought in. I think it's just going to take a little bit more time to gel, so I think they're overhyped this season.
Ben on the text line says, I don't know about the Patriots, but I think the Raiders could be legit, at least offensively. And that's a fair point that Brock Bowers, who I guess avoided a severe knee injury, he's day-to-day. Ashton Genty, you got Jacoby Myers there, and Geno Smith has proven that he's a guy who can get you in the conversation. So I think the Patriots, I'm going to go overhyped here, and I think Parker's with me too. Number 2, they lost the game on Sunday, but the Jets were right in it in a shootout with the Steelers. Is it a lie or legit that Justin Fields has finally figured it out and can be a franchise quarterback?
I think it's legit. I think he's been a franchise quarterback since he's been in the NFL. It's just that teams haven't given him the chance to, like Chicago was a weird situation because they were just still trying to figure out what they wanted. I think it's primarily off the offense you want to run. And I think with Justin Fields, it's that trending of he's not really a Mahomes style quarterback. He's obviously a run first type guy, but he reminds me a little bit of Pavia a little bit. You have that run aspect to your game, just his stature and build. But no, I think he's figured it out. I mean, he had a nice touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson. This team, it was a high scoring, 34-32.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it only goes up for him here. I think the Jets finally have a quarterback they can believe in, somebody they can rally around. So yeah, I think it's legit.
I'm going to go with a lie this for Justin Fields. I think he's going to be fine for the Jets, but I think he's going to be one of those fool's gold quarterbacks where it's like he plays well enough this year that the Jets aren't in position to draft a quarterback, and they're like, you know what, let's give him another year, and then it falls off. He looked good on Sunday, 16 to 22, 10 yards per attempt, 3 total touchdowns, 48 yards on the ground. Like he looked good. I'm going to go with it's a lie, and Justin Fields is going to fall back to earth throughout the season. Parker Kelly.
I'm so lukewarm on this issue because I want to believe it's so bad that Justin Fields is a franchise quarterback. I love Justin Fields. I have a Justin Fields shirt. I want him to be. I have a Justin Fields jersey. Like I want the guy.
Ohio State.
I want the guy to succeed so bad. But it's one game with the Jets, and he looked great. But is he going to continue? I do think it's a little bit of fool's gold, but I hope that I'm wrong. I'm rooting for Justin Fields. I'll say a lie as of right now, but
all right,
if I'm wrong, I will not be upset.
Parker and I are in lockstep so far through the first two. All right, last one for this segment. And this is one that we got a lot of texts yesterday asking us to talk about. Daniel Jones can be the quarterback that leads the Colts to the playoff. Is it a lie or is it legit?
Now, talk about a lukewarm conversation. Yikes. I'm going to go a lie. I'm going to have to go a lie just because this Colts team hasn't really had much success in recent years with quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, is he going to figure it out? I don't know. To me, it's more of, is Miami just that bad? That's the thing for me. I couldn't get a good gauge on Indianapolis on Sunday. I guess they're that good. I don't know. I mean, there were a lot of turnovers from Miami. Tua threw 2 picks, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to say it's a lie for right now.
I'm going to go a lie too. I think Daniel Jones, with what we've seen from him in his career, he's got to prove it for more than 1 week.
Yeah.
Like he's had his moments with the Giants. He took them to the playoffs, and that was what got him that next contract with New York. But it is 1 week against a team that we're all pretty confident aren't very good. So I'm going to go a lie for now. I think the Colts will end up being maybe better than I expected them to be. Like I think I picked them to go 4-13 last week. Maybe they're a 6 or a 7 win team, but I'm going to say it's a lie. They're not going to be playoff contenders with Daniel Jones. Parker?
Yeah, it's a lie. The Colts are not going to be playoff contenders. The Dolphins have a lot bigger issues than Mike McDaniels. They're kind of in one of those weird murky spots where they feel like they're tied to Tua Tagovailoa, and they feel like there's no getting better, there's no getting worse, so they're just kind of stuck with him. And I think I got to see it more than 1 week. I think it's a lie.
We're going to talk more about the Dolphins in segment 2 of NFL Week 1 lies or legit. So far, me and Parker are in lockstep. Patriots are overhyped. Justin Fields isn't going to be a franchise quarterback, and Daniel Jones does not make the Colts playoff contenders. Nick a little bit higher on the Patriots and Justin Fields.
Hey, don't knock Justin Fields. Now, this man, all right, he's just like Kyler Murray.
Yeah, he fits your Kyler Murray prototype.
He does. I mean, he's not 5'2", but besides that, I mean, he's still a good quarterback.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, you can text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll continue our game here of NFL Week 1 lies or legit coming up next. Some thoughts on the Dolphins and also the Packers after a big win against the Lions on Sunday. We'll get to that next. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game.
You see what I did there?
Lies, lies, lies. NFL Week 1. It's the age-old saying that Week 1 is a liar. We're going through the storylines from Week 1 and letting you know whether we think it's a lie or is it going to continue throughout the rest of the season. Is it legit? Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. So we went through the first 3 storylines. Are the Patriots overhyped? Has Justin Fields finally figured it out? Is he on pace to become a franchise quarterback finally? And does Daniel Jones make the Colts a playoff contender after their debut against the Dolphins on Sunday? Let's continue with the Dolphins. After Week 1, are the Dolphins the worst team in football? And will Mike McDaniel and Tua both be gone at the end of the year? We can kind of let's go with the second part of that. Is it a lie or legit that McDaniel and Tua are both on their way out?
I think it's a lie.
Really?
One of two. Yeah. I think McDaniel's gone, Tua stays. I think that's how it all plays out.
I think they're cleaning house.
Really?
Mike McDaniel is right now, I believe he's the odds-on favorite to be the first coach fired. Yes, Titans fans, there is somebody who seems to be doing worse than Brian Callahan at this point. And Tua Tagovailoa is the definition of could we find someone better quarterback? And the Dolphins paid him. Let's see, what is the out after this year if they decided to move on from him? Because that does have an impact on it. I know that the Broncos ate all that money with Russell Wilson. It worked out for them. If they cut him after this year, $99 million in dead cap. Maybe it becomes a Deshaun Watson situation where you just keep him and bring in another quarterback. But man, they really messed up with this contract. They really did. The out is after 2026, where you could get rid of him for only $35 million in dead cap, which is manageable. But I think they're going to clean house. I do not think Week 1 next year for the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel will not be the head coach. Tua will not be the starting quarterback.
Wow. That contract makes your knees buckle a little bit, $99 million.
And that's why with Cam Ward, you got to find out if he's the guy. And if you're not sure, he's probably not. I think you look good on Sunday, but you got 4 years to really decide whether he's the guy. More likely 3. And you got to be able to make a decision. Hopefully he shows you much sooner than that. But I think by the end of the 3rd year, you got to know one way or the other. And if it's in the murky middle, it seems like the worst thing that you can do is extend him, right? Because we're looking at all these teams that extended these iffy quarterbacks, and now they're stuck. So, Parker, do you think Mike McDaniel and Tua are on their way out?
I don't think Tua is, but I think Mike McDaniel is. They seem like the Texas A&M of the NFL to me. Texas A&M, it seems like, goes 8-4 every single year. The Dolphins either go 8-9 or 9-8, and they're right there, can't ever get over the hump. Mike McDaniel, I think, is a brilliant play caller, and I think he can have success as a head coach. It just will not be with Tua. I think that limits him.
All right. So you guys are split on who's got out. I think both are going to be. Tua may still be on the roster, but I don't think he is the quarterback for the Dolphins next year. All right. Number 5. We got 2 more here in Week 1, lies or legit across the NFL. The Packers are Super Bowl contenders with Micah Parsons. Is it a lie? Is it legit?
The easy answer is to say it's a lie, but I think it's legit. I really do. After hearing Micah Parsons after their win in Week 1 against the Lions, he said to all the press that were in the locker room, my back's fine. I'm good. We're out here playing football now. Like, to me, hearing that, that's what you want to hear out of a guy you just traded 2 first-round picks for.
Right, and paid $47 million a year.
Yeah, that's a guy you want to make sure he's fully healthy, and it seems like he is. And if he's going to be a game wrecker like he was in Dallas, and now he's been doing it in Green Bay in 1 week, yeah, I'm saying they're legit.
I'm going to go legit, too, because I just feel like the NFC, it's so wide open. The Eagles are good, but the Eagles didn't look like world beaters on Thursday night. I don't know, it's Week 1. It's Week 1. We're playing this game for a reason, because a lot of times the results in Week 1 don't tell the whole story. But I think the Packers, with the talent they have, Jordan Love's a good quarterback, they're going to be in the conversation. They handle the Lions pretty easily on Sunday. And that might have been one of the more impressive performances we saw in week 1. I'm going to say it's legit. I think the Packers are Super Bowl contenders this season.
They were one player away, one really good player away from on defense from being a Super Bowl contender, and I think they are. I think Jordan Love is a legit MVP candidate. I think it's receiver by committee. Matthew Golden, I'm really excited to see what he could do. Josh Jacobs, one of the best running backs in the NFL. I totally am buying the Packers hype that they'll be a Super Bowl contender.
Man, we're all in on the Packers after week 1.
I was a little hesitant primarily because, Jordan Love in a lot of games last season and years before, he would be in those situational places where he would be playing from behind and have to throw just a Hail Mary ball somewhere and it'd always be a turnover. And they never seem to have that defensive game record. That's why I was a little apprehensive on saying legit, maybe not, but yeah, they are.
Yeah, and for me, the one big question is, can somebody step up in that wide receiver room? Like they've got a lot of good players. Can somebody be great? Like Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, the first round pick. Like there's options there. Can somebody become the go-to guy for Jordan Love? And we'll see if that happens. But I'm going legit. Ben on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com, says, I'm guessing the Chiefs will be part of this game. I don't know how anyone can knock them off until they prove it themselves. If they aren't part of this game, then kudos to y'all. Well, Ben, you guessed it. Our last one is the Kansas City Chiefs. After week 1, we saw what the Bills and Ravens did on Sunday night. Chiefs lose to the Chargers in Brazil. Is it a lie or is it legit that the Chiefs don't have the firepower anymore to compete with the top teams in the AFC?
Talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Yep.
They're still in it, man. That's a lie. They're still in this thing, regardless of whoever's out there as a wide receiver. You could have Andy Reid running out there as a left tackle if you need to. I mean, this team, it'll be okay. It'll be just fine. Don't worry too much. It's just 1 week.
I'm going with a lie too. I mean, we both picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl last week. So like to flip up after 1 week would be ridiculous. It's a lie. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. You cannot, you can't overreact to the fact that they lost to a good Chargers team, and Justin Herbert played out of his mind on Friday night. The Ravens and Bills both looked tough, and they're going to be tough, but you can't go away from the Chiefs. I'll make a pick right now. People starting to doubt the Chiefs. It always kind of happens. They're going to beat the Eagles on Sunday and erase some of the doubt from people's mind, because that's just what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes do. So I'm going to go with it's a lie. The Chiefs are going to be right in there at the end of the year with the Bills and Ravens and likely hosting the AFC Championship game again, because that's just what they do. Parker Kelly, is it a lie or is it legit that the Chiefs can't keep up with the top teams in the AFC?
How stupid would it be if we came on the radio and said the Chiefs didn't have a shot? Because they've made it to 3 straight Super Bowls, 5 straight AFC championships. They still have the best player in the world back there. But I think what Friday night showed us with the Chargers is the talent in the AFC is rising. You have the Chargers, you have the Ravens, you have the Bills, you have Frazier's 15-2 Cincinnati Bengals over there. So, or 15-1,
16-1,
16-1.
Oh, 16-1.
because they only lost 1 game. I think.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so it wouldn't be a shocker if the Chiefs didn't make the Super Bowl, but would you be surprised if they made it back for a 4th straight? Not really.
I said it last week that as much as I think the other teams are more talented than the Chiefs, when you get to January and it's Mahomes versus Allen, it's Mahomes versus Jackson, it's Mahomes versus Herbert, Burrow's the only one who's beaten him. I can't pick against Patty.
Let me just throw one thing out there. You talked about Miami just a second ago with cleaning shop and everything. What if they were to clean shop along with sending Tyreek Hill back to Kansas City?
Well, I just saw from ESPN that I guess Tyreek Hill has some legal troubles popping up again. I don't know if he's going to be a very sought after guy on the trade market. But
that's a bargain.
If
from a front office standpoint, it's a bargain.
If people do want to go after him, I think he would be a guy who does get traded at the deadline. And Brent Veach in Kansas City, that's a guy who is known to go get guys that Patrick Mahomes has been good with before. Like he went out and got Juju Smith-Schuster again. He went and got Mecole Hardman. Like
Kareem Hunt.
He brings these guys back that have shown that they can do it in that system. So maybe Brett Veach goes out and gets Tyreek Hill. I don't know. Like I think it'd be a stretch, but it's not impossible.
Just saying. I mean, you bring back a guy in Kareem Hunt who also had some off the field issues as well. Just,
I also saw, I don't know if this was fake or not. Maybe it was just a hyperbole, like somebody just making a joke. But is it true that it's been a year since Tyreek Hill had a catch of like 30 yards or more? I saw that on Twitter somewhere of like he basically hasn't been an explosive playmaker in the last 365 days. So he's definitely not the guy he used to be. Like, and I think maybe that was a joke, but I
it
did
says
see
his last 30 or more yard catch was a touchdown in week 1 of the 20. No.
2024 season.
Yeah, that ain't right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that might be.
That's what I said. No way, right?
I saw that on Twitter the other day. And if that's true, it's like you may be trading for the guy based on name only and not actual production.
Yeah, I guess. When I read that, I was like, oh no, is AI getting me again? Just because I've read some things on the internet that are not true. So
I know we always say Father Time is undefeated. He comes for everybody, but that's mostly true with speed guys. Like the guys who and Tyreek Hill he's a good route runner. He's good after the catch. But the main thing that made him so special was how fast he was. And when you lose a step and that was your main attribute, it's like you start to become just a guy pretty quick. So maybe that's where Tyreek Hill is at this point.
and you hopefully think that he still has his shiftiness around the line.
Yeah.
And not just your deep threat.
Yeah. So the Chiefs, we're all on board that don't overreact to week 1. They're going to be just fine. And I'm picking it. I think they beat the Eagles on Sunday and it'll be a good game. I don't think that's in prime time either. I think that's like a 4:00 game.
Yeah, because Fox is doing some like
Right.
2 hours.
Yeah,
post
it's
or whatever.
that's the Brady Burkhardt game this week. So should be a fun one. I'm gonna pick the Chiefs. I just can't see the Chiefs going to 0-2 after losing to the Chargers in Brazil on Friday night. Justin from Greenbrier on our text line says, I think the reason week 1 seems like a liar is because they nixed that 4th preseason game and teams are still getting the rust knocked off. That could be true because in the 4 preseason game format, that 3rd one was always kind of like the dress rehearsal. Like your starters played a half for the most part, and that got you into the rhythm of things. Now it's like we saw with Cam Ward. He's a rookie quarterback. He played 7 series in the preseason total. So maybe that is it, that week 1 doesn't show you what these teams are because maybe they aren't to that level quite yet. We'll see what happens in week 2.
Maybe. That you make a great point. The texture makes a great point about that because when Tim Hasselbeck joined Chase and McJoe, I'd say about 3 weeks ago, when they're talking about second half, because I was with Tim on this and so was Chase and McJoe. You need to see a second half out of Cam Ward. At least get him a drive to start the second half. Now that he has a full game under his belt, I will be intrigued to see how week 2 plays out.
Yeah, week 2 going to be very interesting for the Titans taking on the Rams. We'll talk more about that game coming up later on in the show. Did want to get into some college football because as much as the Titans dominate, it is a huge week for college football in the state of Tennessee. We're going to get into the Vols and Georgia, also Vandy and South Carolina coming up next. We'll also talk about some of the other big games. It's a great slate of college football coming up in week 2. We'll talk about all of it coming up in this next half hour. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. Taking a break from the NFL, getting to some college football. It is a huge week across the state of Tennessee. 2-0 Tennessee, 2-0 Vanderbilt, going and facing top 10 opponents. For Vandy, it's on the road. Tennessee gets to host in Neyland Stadium. We're going to know a lot about both of these teams by the end of the week. It's been a rough stretch for Tennessee against Georgia, basically since Kirby Smart got hired. They beat Kirby in his first year back in 2016, but since then, 8 straight wins for Georgia, and the closest it's been in any game is 14, I believe. Yes. They have not been within 14 of Georgia in the last 8 seasons. 31-17 last year, 27-13 3 years ago when Hendon Hooker was there. Outside of that, it's all been 28, 24, 23. So it hasn't gone well, but this is a spot where Josh Heupel can prove that he is an elite coach in this game. Because, again, Joey Aguilar, as good as he's looked, he's not your prototypical SEC quarterback. And if they can go and beat Georgia and get to 3-0, that shows a lot about Josh Heupel. When we were having the conversation of like, do you give Josh Heupel a pass on this year? If he can go beat Georgia for the first time with Tennessee, it's a huge game. I don't think I would pick Tennessee, but it is in Neyland, and Georgia isn't maybe the Georgia of the blanking on the quarterback's name.
Gunnar Stockton?
No, the one.
Stetson Bennett?
Stetson Bennett.
Stetson.
Of the Stetson Bennett days where it's like they just rolled over everybody. It's going to be a big game, and I'm excited to see it. Is that 2:30 Central Time kick
Yeah, it's
in
an
Neyland?
ABC game.
So it kind of works out perfectly. You can watch that game, and then Vanderbilt, South Carolina on right after.
It's a perfect 1-2 combo.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you, though, on this whole Tennessee, Georgia thing, because looking at Georgia, and I was telling this to you in the break, Kirby Smart doesn't care about blowing teams out anymore. He just wants his players fully healthy in games that truly matter. And I feel like a game against Tennessee, like you said, they've beaten them by 2 possessions the last, handful of years, 8 years. This is again, talk about past years. It's a growth year for Tennessee. It's almost like Josh Heupel's able to open up the playbook a little bit to when Hendon Hooker was at Tennessee.
Right.
You're able to do some stuff like that. And when you're kind of, I guess that's why the line is so tight. I heard Robbie earlier saying that the line dropped from like a touchdown to a field goal or something like that. I get that. I get all that. But at the same time, you got to remember, this is Georgia. Georgia is always going to come out there and produce. And I don't know if Tennessee's up for the challenge. I really don't.
Right. And
I can't get a good gauge on Tennessee. I really can't.
Tennessee has gotten the Alabama monkey off their back the last couple of years. You've beaten them 2 out of the last 3 seasons. Georgia's another big one. Tennessee's got to beat. And again, it's in Neyland, which makes you feel a lot better. The spread is currently, I must have missed it, 3.5.
Wow.
So it's going to be, it's a huge game. Tennessee is ranked 15th in the country. You win this game, and the expectations go to a whole new stratosphere for Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from, can we get into the playoff again, to, hey, we could go win the SEC.
Yeah.
But it's, again, easier said than done. They're also without their top 2 cornerbacks, I believe. Jermod McCoy, not quite healthy, coming back yet. So it's going to be a tough ask. And I don't think I would pick Tennessee, but that's why they play the games, right? And in Neyland, in Knoxville, this team, they got to come ready to play, but it's a huge game. And I think Georgia, it's a huge game for them too, because again, they're not being viewed as this Georgia juggernaut that we had for the last couple of years. They're only number 6 in the country. They could prove that they deserve to be in that upper stratosphere of national championship contenders this season.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Tennessee's, schedule the rest of the way out. I mean, if they take care of business with Georgia and somehow get the win, I mean, don't get me wrong, being a Mississippi State fan, I mean, hey, we'll be probably 4-0 going into that week hosting Tennessee, so you never know what happens.
Go Bulldogs.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's go
Exactly.
Bulldogs, baby.
Go Bulldogs.
Exactly. But the rest of that schedule, if Alabama's what everybody sees what they are against Florida State, obviously they're the big, game against ULM, 73-0. But besides that, the only other ranked game is against Oklahoma.
And Oklahoma's look good.
Yeah.
Like John Mateer, I think he might even be getting close to the Heisman favorite after beating Michigan on Saturday. But you're right. It's like if you get past Georgia, the rest of the schedule kind of sets up that you could be
a one-loss team.
11-1, 10-2.
Yeah.
And that's a playoff team again, which I think if you ask any Tennessee fan the day Nico left, which I know Nico hasn't looked good, but the day Nico left, when you're without your starting quarterback, would you be happy just getting back to the playoff? I think the answer would be yes. Now, if you beat Georgia, the expectations rise again. You move the goalpost because it's like, all right, well, now you're 3-0 with a win over Georgia. The expectations are that you're not only in the playoff, but you're making a run in the playoff.
Yeah, it's simple as that. There's no better way to say it, Jake. I mean, I don't have much more else to say about Tennessee because that's simply it.
And Justin from Greenbrier makes a good point. Like Georgia didn't dominate Austin Peay last week. Austin Peay looked like they could be a force in the FCS.
Exactly.
But he says UT may have a better shot than we think, and that's true. Again, that's why they play the games. I'm excited to watch that one. That one is at 2:30. Then after that, late night game, 6:45 kick, I believe. South Carolina Vanderbilt. And this game is massive for both teams. Vandy, I mean, I brought up Georgia and Tennessee's record. Vanderbilt has not fared well against South Carolina in the last couple of years either. This is one that they have to get the monkey off their back. But Vandy looked really, really good. We talked about this yesterday. Like Vandy looked dominant in that second half on Saturday against Virginia Tech. I mean, 300 yards difference in the second half, 321 to 21. Like that doesn't happen very often. But South Carolina, the last time Vandy beat South Carolina was in 2008.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yes, they have not beaten South Carolina since 2007 and 2008, and a lot of the games haven't been very close. I mean, 28-7 last year, 47-6 the year before that. Like, this is a game that has not been easy for Vanderbilt for the last 2 decades, basically. But this is a huge opportunity because I said it yesterday. Vanderbilt wins this game, you're ranked, and you get to come home and play Georgia State and Utah State. Not gimmies. It's not like Charleston Southern in week 1, but
your favorite in those
that's
games.
A game. Those are games you should win. And all of a sudden you're heading into October 5-0, heading to Tuscaloosa, and you got a chance to really prove yourself as not only a team that's going to take the next step, but guess what? You're heading into that Alabama game. Obviously that's not easy. You're playing Alabama and Tuscaloosa. Teams don't win those games very often.
Right.
But you put yourself in the position that if you do look good in that game or win that game, you're in the playoff conversation, which is, I mean, for Vandy 2 years ago to say that they would even be able to utter the words playoff conversation when you lost 10 straight games in 2023, it just shows you what Clark Lee has done with this program and how fast he's turned it around. Diego Pavia. This is a huge game on Saturday. And South Carolina, rightfully so, I think is favored by like a touchdown. It's at home. They've got Lenoris Sellers, and they proved last year that they can be a playoff contender. But based on the way Vandy played on Saturday, I wouldn't count them out at all.
No, I mean, the one thing I was talking to you about in the break is that MK Young guy, the guy from New Mexico State. I think that opens up so many more opportunities for Clark Lee and his staff. You now have a two-headed monster. Maybe it's a one-off thing. Hopefully it's not, but maybe he's a late bloomer in some regard. To have 95 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and Cedric Alexander to just kind of do the dirty work and get 2 touchdowns out of that as well. You now, like I said, you have a two-headed monster where you can just pound and ground everybody, like up and down the field. And you can do that against Alabama. You can do that against LSU because that opens up your play action game. That opens up stuff up the seam for Eli Stowers. It opens up a lot of other opportunities.
Right.
You know?
And
so go ahead.
For Vandy, you mentioned the running backs, just the depth of the weapons for Diego Pavia is so much better than it was last year. You have Trey Richardson, who he was sensational in the second half against Virginia Tech on Saturday. You've got Caleb Barnett as a freshman who they've used as kind of a gadget guy, but it just puts something on film that these defenses have to pay attention to. Eli Stowers, again, maybe a first-round pick, likely a first-round pick as a tight end. You got Richie Hoskins. You got Junior Sherrill. Like, it feels different from last year because last year it was like Diego Pavia. I felt like he had a couple of options here and there, but now it's like they can kind of line change guys in and out at running back and at wide receiver. They at tight end, they had Bryson Coleman catch the long touchdown. That might have been the only snap he played on Saturday, but
He
he
contributed.
made a huge play for that team when they were down 10-0. This team has depth. South Carolina, I'm still waiting to find out if South Carolina is good or do they just have the star power at the top.
Are they legit or are they liars?
There you go.
There you go.
That's it. We bring it all together here in the 10 o'clock hour. Does South Carolina just have a really good quarterback and a really good pass rusher and a track star wide receiver who's 6'5"? Or do they have a team that can compete and go to the playoffs? That is going to be the question on Saturday night. I believe that game's going head to head with A&M Notre Dame, which it's tough. And Florida LSU, is that at the same time too? It might be
so,
which is tough because it's like that might be a multi-screen type of endeavor on Saturday night.
Vandy's on SEC Network.
So you got South Florida, Miami at 3:30. So that might be a double screen with the Tennessee Georgia game, and then Texas A&M Notre Dame is on NBC at 6:30. Florida LSU is on ABC at 6:30, and Vanderbilt South Carolina is on SEC Network at 6:45. So
that's a load.
I think that will be a multi-screen type of night. This is my first college football Saturday that I don't have to work. Like I was at the Vandy game both the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Columbia, so I am fired up to just sit down and watch some good football. And we've got plenty on the schedule on Saturday.
Phone is on Do Not Disturb.
Yes.
I'll say one thing about Vandy before we go to break. Kudos to whoever made this schedule because I feel like having Virginia Tech right before, South Carolina is a great just precursor into knowing what type of thing you need to prepare for.
Right.
Because Kyron Drones and Lenora Sellers, sure, they're completely different quarterbacks in some regard,
but they're
same
similarities.
play style.
Yeah.
Same play style. And I think if Vanderbilt can have a nice linebacker as a QB spy in some regard on Sellers all game, or not all game, but let's say half the game, that takes away half their playbook.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like Kyron Drones is Lenora Sellers light. He's a little bit worse at everything Lenora Sellers does.
Yeah.
Like he's not quite as big. He's not quite as strong. He doesn't have as strong of an arm. He's not as fast, but like he does similar things, just not at the level that Lenora Sellers does. So it's a good tune up for Vanderbilt and the atmosphere. Like, I mean, I watched Lane Stadium clear out on Saturday night, which is sadly for Virginia Tech fans, it's not uncommon at this point.
Bittersweet for you.
But that first half, you were dealing with a really tough road atmosphere and you were down 10, but now you head into South Carolina, which it's similar. South Carolina is not Death Valley, but it's a tough atmosphere to go play in. Vandy's not going to be shocked by it. They're not going to be surprised because they just saw something pretty similar on Saturday night. So going to be a great game. I'm excited for Saturday. I mean, I'm telling you, like there's going to be a ton of great football. And again, it's like, would I pick either of the Tennessee teams to win those games? No, because it's just like the cards are kind of stacked against them in a lot of ways. Like Georgia's a really talented team. Tennessee hasn't beaten them in almost a decade. For Vandy, it's been almost 20 years since they beaten South Carolina. You're going on the road. But both teams have shown enough in the first 2 weeks that it's like, if you don't think they have a chance, then you're crazy. Because both those teams have proven themselves pretty well through the first 2 weeks. So going to be a fun day. Going to be a fun day if you're a fan of the Volunteers or the Commodores. Anchor down. See if Vandy can get it done, get to 3-0, and then
I know we weren't in the conversation, but Hail State just put
yeah, you know what? We'll do that coming up next. We're going to wrap up the hour with a little more college football talk, and we'll give Nick Frazier a chance to take a victory lap for his Mississippi State Bulldogs on Saturday night. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, wrapping up the second hour. Talking some college football. It's a big weekend. We went through the huge games for the state of Tennessee. Vanderbilt at South Carolina, Tennessee hosting Georgia. A lot else going on in college football, but I did want to give you an opportunity. Mississippi State with a thrilling victory against a top 15 Arizona State team in Starkville, in Stark Vegas on Saturday night. That is a huge win for Mississippi State.
It's massive. It puts the program back on the map. It allows Jeff Lebby to kind of settle in a little bit. He has the mentality of Starkville versus everyone. That's been a narrative that's been since, I guess you call it preseason or before the season, that is. This team, there was a lot of transfer portal acquisitions. Obviously, you have Blake Shapen last year that didn't do anything because of injury. Comes in this year and is lighting up everybody for the most part. Got one of the fastest wide receivers in college football in Brennan Thompson.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's kind of a good 1-2 punch. It's funny, though. The first play of the game and the last play of the game were the exact same plays.
Yeah.
I thought it was just pretty funny. So, yeah, kudos to Mississippi State for winning against a top 15 opponent. I think they should be ranked. I heard Joe Rexrod this morning talk about his little AP poll ranking thing.
They're still got less votes somehow than Mississippi or than Arizona State did.
It makes no sense. But besides that, I think if they take care of business against Alcorn State and Northern Illinois, Bulldogs are going in undefeated and they're hosting Tennessee that week. In week 5, that is. So if they could pull off that, and then they have A&M, then Florida. I mean, they have a pretty rough back end of the schedule, but if they can at least have 6-7 wins on the schedule going into those games, I think they'll be all right.
You know, Brandon Walker from Barstool.
Oh,
did you see the clip of him yesterday that the Mississippi State football account tweeted out? I want that kind of joy for my sports teams again, because all of my teams just haven't been very good, and especially Virginia Tech. It's like I want to feel like that again for a game, because it was so like he was acting like they just won the national championship.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're playing a game like that and you can get the upset over a team that made the playoff last year, kudos to Mississippi State. Skylar on our text line says, I had ASU in a parlay, and when I saw them go on that long drive at the end of the game, milking the clock, I walked away from the screen thinking I had that leg in as a lock. I walked back in 5 minutes later and was like, holy crap, what happened? Congrats, Dr. Crane. Definitely a good win for Mississippi State.
Thank you. They actually were fined $500,000 for taking down the goalpost. And
it was worth it. It was so worth it.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, for Vandy last year, they had to pay a fine, but I'm sure they wouldn't change a thing when you can beat a team like that, beat a top 15 team on your field, storm the field. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And Matthew from Nashville asking a couple questions. He says, does Pry make it to the end of the season as Virginia Tech's coach? I can tell you, probably not. They have to fire the athletic director first, because he's not going to get to hire his replacement. So that's my Virginia Tech update, is that they're cleaning house.
How about 3 touchdown passes from Blake Shapen of 48, 47, and 58? Bombs over Baghdad. That's what that was on Saturday night.
Pure beauty. I know Jeff Lebby's a part of that coaching tree of Art Briles and, the whole air raid central. I mean, that's why he kind of gelled really well with this whole Mike Leach transition. Obviously, they had Zach Arnett in between, but listen, I'll state it. I'll eat crow right now. I thought Jeff Lebby would be gone after this season.
Yeah,
I really did, because the trajectory of this program was not looking good optics wise, and I just didn't see the future. I didn't see where this I guess tunnel was leading to.
And
so
it makes a good point. We talk about Brian Callahan early in the show, and I get college football and NFL football aren't the same. But Brian Callahan went into this season kind of in a similar spot as Jeff Lebby. It was like, hey, it didn't go well. You've got to prove that you can turn this thing around. Same thing as Clark Lee heading into last season. You came off a 10-game losing streak to end 2023. And Clark comes out, beats Virginia Tech, who was the immediate darling out of the ACC heading into the year. Jeff Lebby gets a win over Arizona State. It's like Brian Callahan needed a better first impression. And it's like, for Jeff Lebby, now the view around him is completely changed. If Brian Callahan doesn't botch that game on Sunday, maybe people are more on board with giving him a chance. But now it feels like most of the fan base has completely given up on him.
Yeah, it's crazy how the temperature of a fan base in the NFL to the college football is like different, but not really.
Right.
I guess I'll go off of franchises individually. The Titans fan base has evolved throughout the years from the, early Mike Vrabel days up to now. I feel like that the Mike Vrabel days really matured this Titans fan base to know left from right and to know that, yeah, this team actually was good and now they're not. As for college football fans, 0-4, 0-5, you're gone immediately. That's just the temperature of the way. That's the lay of the land, essentially. But NFL, it's completely different. Not completely different, but just a little. It's different by franchise.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And
because Philly fans are passionate, and I feel like Titans fans are a little similar to that. There's
passion in every fan base, but there are some that are, I guess, more patient than others.
Yeah.
Or, less
aggressive.
That was the word that was coming to my mind,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it's perfect, but yeah, less aggressive than Philly or other
Cleveland.
Yeah. Matthew in Nashville also asked, I missed the first part of your college football segment, but how long does Billy Napier last at Florida? If they lose their next 3 games and lose badly, Scott Strickland has no choice but to fire him, right? I mean, I saw it today. He's 20-20 at Florida. That's not good enough at Florida. And DJ Lagway kind of saved his job last year by turning things around, but can't lose to South Florida on your home field.
And they got rid of Dan Mullen, who is doing quite well at UNLV, beating Nico Iamaleava, by the way.
Right.
So, and Scott Strickland, former AD at Mississippi State. So I have nothing to say about Florida.
Well, Florida is going to Death Valley this week, and if it goes really bad, I think Billy Napier can start packing his things. Not that it would happen this week, but I think somewhat soon. For USF, they're going to Miami this week, and if they win that game, it's going to be tough for anybody to catch them as the group of five auto bid for the playoff. Unless they completely fall apart in American play, 3 straight ranked games to start their season. Boise State, Florida, Miami. If they can get through 3-0, not that I think they will. I mean, Miami's look good, but USF could be legit.
They really could. I mean, if you beat 3 top 25 opponents in a row, when's the last time that's happened from a group of 5 team? It's probably been a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm still on the outs with UNLV. You got to keep them in the works.
Matthew in Nashville says Feinbaum thinks they could lose Lagway if Napier is fired. And yeah, I guess that's something you have to factor in is like, if you think Lagway is that good, do you have to make the decision knowing that if you fire Napier, he's probably out the door with it?
And Napier even said in his press conference, I think after the game or Sunday or whatever it was, he's not giving up the play call.
Yep.
So
he did say that.
Yeah, that's something you might have to look into as well.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Going to be a fun weekend of college football. Tennessee and Vandy both with big games and other big games across the state. We didn't even get to A&M, Notre Dame, but going to be a great Saturday for week 3 of the college football season. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get back into the Titans to start hour number 3 of the show. The offensive line didn't look great on Sunday, and now J.C. Latham's status for the game is up in the air. We'll talk about the group up front for Cam Ward after this. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. Talking some Titans in this final hour. 0-1, lost 20-12 to the Broncos on Sunday. Coming home for the first of back-to-back games in Nashville, facing the LA Rams on Sunday. Going to be an interesting one. And I did say last week, if you got through the first 2 weeks 1-1, you felt pretty good. They had a golden opportunity on Sunday with the Broncos just continuously trying to give them that game with turnovers and bad decisions, and the Titans couldn't take advantage, lost by 8. Now the Rams come in 1-0, and it doesn't get much easier. I'd say the offense is a little better, defense probably a little worse than what you saw, but still a similarly talented team. And I'd make the guess that they're not going to make the same mistakes that the Broncos made.
No, not at all. Looking at that Broncos, if I'm the Rams, looking at the Broncos film of just rushing, like showing 8 and rushing 6, or just showing 6, rushing 4, stuff like that. If I'm Sean McVay, I'm salivating. Like, this is, just throw the kitchen sink at Cam Ward and see if he can figure it out, because that's exactly what Sean Payton did. And if that's the case, the Rams are going to win this game handedly.
Yes, and the defensive line we mentioned earlier, probably a little better than what the Broncos had. Similar, but the back end maybe a little better, and you really hope that the wide receivers can be better. But I want to start with the offensive line. Computer Cowboy on Twitter, Ben Baldwin, he puts out a whole bunch of charts and stuff about win rate and EPA and all the advanced analytics. So he posted, here are 2 measures of how your favorite team did in pass protection in week 1. And it uses pass rush win rate from ESPN and PFF grade to tell you how teams did in pass protection. The Titans were the second worst team in both. Actually, pass rush win rate, there are a few others that were worse, but they were the second worst in PFF grade, only ahead of the Los Angeles Rams. So the Titans defensive line should have some opportunities, but the Titans O-line has to be better. And you don't know about JC Latham's status, but Dan Moore wasn't great. And you had penalties. Cam Ward got hit 12 times. That just can't continue to happen if you're going to keep Cam Ward healthy, first of all, and if you're going to be able to become a productive offense, which you weren't on Sunday in Denver.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Dan Moore Jr., Ali Udo. I mentioned already about the salivating aspect of looking at the film if you're the Rams. I mentioned also earlier about the defensive fronts and doing these stunts. If you got Udo and Dan Moore Jr. out there and they're running stunts all over your left and right tackles, one, for Dan Moore Jr., it doesn't help him at all, because that's going to lead to a lot of holding penalties, a lot of reaching. And I think they had a stat on the broadcast when they were taking on Denver. I think he was like the second most in holding penalties last year, something like that. Or
yeah, something
league.
Like that.
So if you're going to be having that, man, I mean, Cam Ward's going to have to be able to get the ball out quick.
Yes, and Dan Moore, it was not a good debut. And I am one of the biggest PFF haters out there. Jake from Hate Farm, as Adam from Portland calls me. I do not like PFF. I think it's an arbitrary number, but like, it usually matches the eye test for a lot of things. Sometimes it doesn't, and you got to use your own ability to know what good football is. But I'm looking, John Glennon posted the PFF grades yesterday. Here we go. Pass block grades. Dan Moore's pass block grade was a 26.4. That is abysmal. And it's like, again, I'm not a huge PFF guy, but if it's 26, that means it was bad.
Yeah.
The people grading aren't complete idiots. I don't trust their grades completely, but if it got to a 26, that means it wasn't good. He was getting beat by speed a lot. It's like Nick Bonito just had such a good, quick first step, and Dan Moore just couldn't keep up. Cam Ward was under pressure on over 50% of his dropbacks. 53%, worst in the league.
Look, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it until the cows come home. The Titans need to go back to this run game that they have now abandoned for some reason. And nonetheless, Brian Callahan likes to run that just right up the middle with Tony Pollard, and it gets nothing. Be a little bit more methodical with your run game. Don't be predictable. If you can be, more of the methodical play caller that everybody knows that you kind of are when you were at Cincinnati, if you were calling plays, do that. Because Throwing the ball on first and second down ain't helping. It's just not. You're not setting your team up for success. You're not when you don't establish a run game, you are now behind the 8 ball. You're going up against a team in Los Angeles that already has a good passing game. We all know that.
Yep.
But when you have a solidified running back like Kyron Williams, he can end games for you. That's your closer. Titans don't have a closer. And don't get me wrong, maybe it's the offensive line that is shadowing how bad the blocking is to the point where Tony Pollard can't find a 11 or 12 hole to go through, A or B gap. If he can't find that, then I understand it. But you got to have a closer, and the Titans don't have that right now.
Yeah, the run game was not good for the most part of the game. There were a couple of drives where Tony Pollard got some rhythm. He was getting 6 or 7 yards a pop. But towards the end of the game, it was basically just running it straight into the back of his left or right guard. And then you're in 2nd and 11, and now you're in trouble. So the run game has to be better. Matthew in Nashville on the text line says, tried to tell y'all months ago that Dan Moore was going to be a disaster. I believe Matthew's one of our resident Steelers fans. And I'm not ready to raise the full-on alarm bell on Dan Moore. Like, I'm not calling Dennis Daly or Andre Dillard on Dan Moore. But it was not good. It was not good enough on Sunday. And but I take I trust the word of the reporters who are out there, whether that's TD or PK or Corey Curtis or Parker and Connor who were out there. And it's like, if Dan Moore looked good in the preseason and in training camp, I think there's potential for him to be good. I don't think he's going to be a disaster, but it has to be better than it was on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the intangibles are there, but I just look at the preseason, kind of like we're talking about, liars and legit. I look at that as fool's gold. I look at the preseason as fool's gold for the Titans offensive line because they had majority of their starting offensive line out there
against backups.
And that's exactly right. When you go up against backups, you could be great all day, every day. But, there's that one thing where it was in Atlanta. He got slipped up on his left ankle, I think was what it was.
Yeah.
Somebody rolled up on him. I'm not saying that's an issue at all, but, I'd just be worried about this. Not about the injuries. I'm just saying the backups for starters because it's fool's gold, man. I don't want to be looking at preseason starters when in regards, these guys are probably backups on some other teams.
Yeah. I mean, Dan Moore, he was the best option out there to fix left tackle. And I don't blame Mike Borgonzi and the front office for going out and getting Dan Moore. He was never going to be Trent Williams. You hope that he can be capable. And I don't think he was capable on Sunday. But I don't believe that one game determines what he's going to be for the rest of the year. He's got a chance to prove himself. And it's going to be tough if J.C. Latham's not out there for them to keep Cam Ward clean. But the offensive line has to be better. And Benjamin raises a good question about Bill Callahan. And I think we should get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We'll get into the O-line guru, Bill Callahan, coming up next. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. Tuesday edition of the show. Still looking back at the Titans' 20-12 loss against the Broncos and looking ahead to what is another tough ask for the Titans to get a win against the LA Rams at home this upcoming Sunday. We're looking at the offensive line because it was not good on Sunday. After all the talk about how much improved it is, and I mean, you could see they put a ton of investment into that spot, and it looked good in the off season and into training camp and in the preseason. But when the live bullets started flying, Nick Bonito was abusing J.C. Latham and Dan Moore on Sunday. And now you got Jared Verse, reigning defensive rookie of the year, coming in, and Byron Murphy, Byron
Young.
Byron Young,
Yep.
excuse me. Byron Murphy is
Tennessee.
Seahawks. So lots of talent on that defensive line. I'm a little worried about Sunday for Cam Ward. He was hit 12 times. 12 times and 6 sacks for Cam Ward in his debut. We did get a text from 8252. This was from yesterday. He emphasized it on the third down sack in the red zone. So the one that believe this was early in the game, maybe even the first drive. Third down sack in the red zone. He says, Dan Moore and Tony Pollard lost on a double team because of bad technique footwork. That's on the fake O-line guru, Bill. And Benjamin texts in, so do we still believe in Bill Callahan? And with Bill Callahan, it's one of those things, it's like the opposite of Brian Callahan, where with Brian Callahan, you're skeptical because you haven't seen him do it before. With Bill Callahan, it's like you kind of just believe because he has the reputation of being such a good offensive line coach. And it's not like you're giving him scrubs. Like, it's not 5 undrafted free agents who are on the line. You've got Dan Moore, who's been a 4-year starter at left tackle in the NFL. 11th overall pick, Peter Skoronski. 5-6-year starter at center, Lloyd Cushenberry. 10-year veteran, Kevin Zeitler, not Graham Glasgow. And J.C. Latham, 7th overall pick. Like, you have given him talented players. Why are they not performing better?
Well, I'll start with the right tackle at J.C. Latham. Obviously, the hip injury that I guess was that a nagging injury for him a little bit in the offseason. I'm not too sure, but they move him from left tackle back to right tackle into that natural position, air quotes. Don't get me wrong. I get the Olga Bertha thing when they go to practice. It's a very tough sled. You really got to get your pad level down. You got to get in the right position. I get all that. I don't want to discredit Bill Callahan for that aspect. I think he's a good teacher when it comes to the basics of being an offensive lineman. But when it comes to the, I guess, pass protections and maybe run blocks, maybe that's where the gray area starts to come into play, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's a push and pull thing because it's Brian Callahan's offense, but Bill Callahan's the one implementing the pass pro and the run blocking. And so obviously they're both in lockstep, but I'm not too sure how to decipher that.
And based on everything we've heard and seen, Cam Ward was setting the protections pretty well at the line of scrimmage. Like, you saw him consistently on Sunday getting into shotgun, surveying the defense, and going up and making a check and setting the protection. And it's not like we saw, week 1 of the preseason when Anthony Richardson just let a blitzer, David Ajabo, fly in clean and light him up. Like, there was nothing like that on Sunday where Cam Ward just missed a protection and let somebody come in clean. But like the sack at the end of the first half that almost was a safety.
Yeah.
If you watch the replay of that, J.C. Latham looked like his feet were in quicksand and just it wasn't Bonito. It was 0, I want to say, for Denver.
I have to go back and look at the box score.
I'm not 100. I forget the name, but the other side, he got 3 steps into the backfield before J.C. Latham got 1, and he got in clean. For J.C. Latham, that cannot happen. And now you're worried about the health of him. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe the hip stuff is really slowing him down. 1289, Scott from Clarksville on our text line asked, how is the health of J.C. Latham after his hip injury? We don't know.
Yeah.
It didn't sound good yesterday from Brian Callahan, but we probably won't get any new knowledge until tomorrow. And I would guess we won't know his status for sure until Friday. I mean, I don't think he's going to be a full participant tomorrow. Like, that would make you feel pretty good about Sunday. I would guess he's probably a DNP tomorrow. And then you hope that you can get him limited Thursday and Friday and hope he has a chance to play. But based on what Brian Callahan said, you might be without Latham, who didn't look great on Sunday. And now you got to check in Ollie Udo out there. Cam Ward might be running for his life again on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Latham being a limited participant Thursday, Friday, because those are primarily walkthroughs for the most part. I mean, from what I know of, you just going through stuff left and right, the installs. I want to go back to the Bill Callahan question real fast, because I kind of deciphered my own question just sitting here, just thinking about it. Look, and I said this to you in the break, Brian Callahan has implemented some things from Cam Ward's college days.
Yeah.
A lot of shotgun stuff. And in the NFL, you see guys like J.J. McCarthy, who is now a really good quarterback under Kevin O'Connell. A lot of that's under center. Like, you got to remember, if you're disguising certain passes, it needs to be under center. A little bit of some play action aspect to it all. And I think that obviously helps out with the pass pro as well, because you're not starting from, 5-6 yards back as a quarterback in some regard. So then kind of gives your lineman a little bit easier to look at the front if it's more shaded in, because if you're in the backfield, a lot of those edge rushers are already shaded to the outside and or they do a stunt. That's why it's going to be difficult when the Rams come to town, because there's going to be a lot of stunts coming from the edge.
Yes. It's a tough start for this team. And we knew that right from the jump, that the Broncos and Rams, probably 2 of the 5 toughest teams you're going to see this year, and you get them back to back. I thought Cam Ward looked good on Sunday. And, I was telling you, I had a point in my head that I wanted to make, and I forgot it in our first segment. It just came back to me. There was a tweet yesterday from a Broncos beat writer, and I apologize for not remembering the name, but said that a lot of Broncos defenders were praising Cam Ward in the post-game locker room and saying that they think he's going to be a guy. So it's like, it's great to see that. But in order for him to develop, like, the results have to come too. Like, the film can look good and he can keep hitting wide receivers in the hands and watching it fall to the turf, and can keep running for his life, rolling right, making a throw back to his left. But if you want to actually have results and win games, you gotta protect him, and the receivers have to help him. And I think you might be right that maybe some more play action out of the under center.
Yeah.
Like, they've got to be a little bit less predictable with the play calling. And it's tough when not only was Callahan's play calling not great, but it seemed like a lot of the receivers had trouble lining up, knowing what they were doing, and the offensive line wasn't very good. I mean, it's a perfect storm.
Yeah. I mean, look at the NFL in years past. A lot of plays have happened under center. Sure, you have 1 or 2 shotgun plays every now and then, but like, come on now. Like, think about it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Why do you think Mike Vrabel had so much success with this Titans offense under Derrick Henry? It was ground and pound, run the football. I mean, you had extra tight ends on the edge of the offensive line. And maybe, like I said before, maybe that was the reason for the compensation for offensive line play. Maybe it was those extra tight ends helping the chip block on the outside. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
Maybe the Titans need to get back to running a tight end back and forth with the best pass rusher.
There you go. I mean, it's not a bad idea.
At this point, the Browns game from 2 years ago, where Myles Garrett, they were playing tag in the backfield with whoever the tight end was at that point. It might have been Ferkser or something
Anthony
like that.
Ferkser.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, it was a rough game for the Titans. It is week 1. There are a lot of red flags with Brian Callahan, the offensive line, the wide receivers. But again, it is week 1. And I think everybody has to, take a step back, realize that there were a lot of mistakes made, and see what happens on Sunday. Because if it becomes a trend that Calvin Ridley is dropping everything thrown his way, you got to start worrying about it. Brian Callahan, I think the worry is already here. If the offensive line struggles again on Sunday, maybe if Latham's not out there, that's a big part of it. But I think you have to start worrying about whether that unit's going to be bottom 5 in the league again. We'll see what happens on Sunday. The defense looked good. And I did want to talk about the defense today, because last year in the Bears game, I thought the defense looked good too. Do we think, we'll go back to lies are legit here. Was the Titans defense legit on Sunday? Is that something we're going to see? Or do we think the defense is more like what we saw last year, where maybe the yardage looks good, but they're not making the plays necessary? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly. Last couple of segments on this Tuesday. Chase and Big Joe are coming up at the top of the hour. Tomorrow, Corey Curtis from News 2 is going to join us for his weekly show. We'll do 3 hours with Corey, talking Titans, college football, much more. And I meant to mention this off the top, but obviously today is Tuesday. Usually TD is with us on Tuesdays, but the Titans switched up their media schedule. They have the coordinators speaking out there right now at St. Thomas Sports Park. The plan is for TD to join Thursday this week for the full show, or as long as he can possibly stay before practice. So TD, the plan is Thursday, so make sure you tune in for that. Let's talk defense for the Titans. The offense, I feel like we beat the dead horse about the offense as much as we possibly can. I mean, as basic as it seems to say, I think Cam Ward was like the only redeeming factor on that offense. Maybe the interior of the offensive line. Tony Pollard had some plays. The tight ends were okay, but like drops, bad offensive line play. I just saw another chart out there that had running back expected points added and pressure rate. And the Titans were just not, they almost broke the chart of how bad they were on Sunday. So Cam Ward was not put in a good situation, and I think he did about as much as he could in that spot. We'll see what they can do against the tough Rams defense on Sunday. For the Titans defense, they look good. They looked really good on Sunday. They forced turnovers. Yeah, there were some X plays. The 50-yard run wasn't great. Cortland Sutton had the touchdown late in the first half, which they shouldn't have even been on the field for, but that's besides the point. I think the defense looked good, but the question is, like last year, the defense looked good against the Bears. They shut down Caleb Williams, held him to like 93 yards passing for the entire game, and they only gave up 10 points, if I'm remembering correctly, because he had the block punt and the pick six. It ended 24-17. Last year in week 1, the Titans defense did enough to win the game. They didn't win the game. And then it kind of felt like just a slow decline from there. Do you think this year the Titans have the talent to end up being an above average defensive unit?
Yes, only if they stay healthy. I think that's obviously the primary health for everybody in the NFL is have your primary guys stay healthy. But this team relies, like they need their starters to produce. Like we're talking about L'Jarius Sneed in some aspects. Was he on a pitch count? Was he not on a pitch count? I think from the amount of plays that he was involved in Sunday, he was serviceable.
He looked good.
He had a pass deflection. I think he had 3 or 4 tackles.
Yeah.
Like that. That's kind of what you need out of a guy like that. He doesn't need to be your all pro guy, but every time the ball came to him, he seemed to really step up to the occasion.
He looked like he was healthy, first of all, and he was flying around a little bit. Like the instincts look good from L'Jarius Sneed, despite not playing in 10 months.
Yeah.
So that was good to see. I asked Parker this question yesterday, and maybe you guys talked about it on Chasing Big Joe. If there was a pitch count for L'Jarius Sneed, why did you waste all of it in the first half?
It's a great question.
Like, I understand the idea of not wanting to rush him back, and then if there's a setback, he misses 2 months. Because that's kind of how it's been with L'Jarius Sneed. Is like, if he gets hurt, you're not going to see him for a while. But, like, could you not have give him a series in the first half, see how he responds, maybe give him another series late in the first half, and then deploy him as necessary in the second half when you need him. And I know it's tough as a cornerback to be like, go cover that guy for 1 play or 3 plays or whatever it is, but I just feel like he could have been used smarter than they used him.
Yeah, no, I'd agree to that. I think also, too, it kind of goes back to your point earlier in the show about rhythm, just having the rhythm of play, talking about Callahan, but for L'Jarius Sneed, for, I guess, veteran players like that, I think it takes them a little bit more time to ease into the rhythm of the game. Like you're saying, go block that guy, go block this guy. I think that's more easier on a guy like Jarvis Brownlee, even though he didn't have a great game. I mean, just besides the point of that.
See, I thought some of those calls were a little weak.
Yeah.
It was like he has to make some adjustments because I feel like referees circle him of like that guy gets handsy. If you see it, call it. And he got the 2 penalties there. He got the face mask. You can't have 3 penalties like that in a game. But overall, like, I thought him and Sutton were both hand fighting, and they never called it on Cortland Sutton. Like the one on the little curl route, Sutton pushed off, and Brownlee kind of grabbed his arm a little bit and then dove in front of the ball. That should have been a no call.
Yeah.
But they called it on Brownlee. I thought it was a little weak, but I agree with what you're saying that like Brownlee has to be smarter and know that if he keeps playing exactly the way he's playing, he's going to hurt the team more than he helps it.
Yeah, and it only hurts the progress of L'Jarius Sneed coming back because what the Titans want to do is they want to ease him back into that football, I guess, stamina in some aspects. And when you try to pick and choose to put your veteran cornerback in at certain situations in the game, and you got a guy like Jarvis Brownlee who's not really, I guess, I wouldn't say not thinking, but he's definitely being a little bit more handsier than he should be. That forces you into putting a guy like Snead in more often than not when he's not fully ready.
I will say I'm more of a believer in the defense this year than I was last year, I think. Like, Jeff Simmons looked like a disruptor this year.
Mm-hmm.
He had the strip sack. He basically forced that Xavier Woods interception. And you've got the secondary that seems to be opportunistic. Like, there's a decent chance Amani Hooker was that far from a pick six. And Bo Nix is not a guy who turns the ball over a ton. I think he had 12 picks last year, something like that. And in college, he barely ever turned the ball over. And the Titans made him make mistakes. You're also going to get L'Jarius Sneed more healthy, hopefully. T'Vondre Sweat only played 40% of the snaps, which is about what I expected him to play. He should start to ramp up this week, not playing at altitude. And Kevin Winston, like Quandre Diggs played well, but I do think the growth potential for Kevin Winston, once he gets healthy, he could end up your 3 safety looks, which they ran a lot of on Sunday, could end up being massive when you get into those big nickel spots with Hooker, Woods, and Winston. I think this defense has a chance to improve throughout the year because they're going to get some of those big pieces back and healthy. And I think it all hinges on Jeffrey Simmons. Like, if Jeffrey Simmons plays the way he played without the dumb penalties for the rest of the year, this could be a pretty good defensive unit.
Yeah. And just imagine, I don't want to look too far into the future, but imagine the Titans go and grab some more defensive pieces in the next draft. This team could really do some real damage in a year and a half to 2 years.
Yeah, and you'll see what Femi Oladejo can do. He flashed at least a little bit, mostly when he was unblocked, but he made the right decisions on those plays. He didn't, I think Mark Sanchez used the term, he didn't chase the cheese on some of those play action fakes where they tried to boot Nix out. Oladejo stayed home, set the edge, and made Bo Nix just dirt it.
Yep.
And that's what you want from him. They talked about how they really liked how he set the edge, and he did that on Sunday. If he continues to grow, and yeah, if you can use an early pick on another pass rusher, this defense has a lot of pieces, a lot of young pieces that can make this a pretty good unit pretty fast. It's the offense that has some of the worries, but I really like what we saw from the defense on Sunday. Tough test coming up against the Rams. Like, we talked about what the defense could do to the Titans. This offense, Matthew Stafford, I know he's had the back issues, but you got Kyron Williams around him. You've got Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. Like, this is going to be a good team. I'm interested to hear what L'Jarius Sneed's workload's going to be. Brian Callahan said they're going to try and ramp him up a little bit more, but it didn't sound like he's going to be out there playing the whole game. And I would hope T'Vondre Sweat's a full go now, right? Like,
he should be.
If he played 40% of the snaps at altitude, it's not like he's ever going to play 90% of the snaps. Like, you should be able to get 60 or 70% of the snaps out of Sweat.
You should. Now, it's a matter of, was it truly all of the altitude thing, or is it more of him just trying to
football shape? Also, I believe I saw both guards are out for the Rams on Sunday, or at least are injured. Maybe not officially out, but it doesn't look good that both starting guards for the Rams are going to play. So could be a huge game for Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat if they can take advantage of some backups out there for the Rams. 615-737-1025. Last call for phones. If you have thoughts on the Titans defense, on the Titans performance against the Broncos or anything else, this is the last call. One more segment coming up. We'll wrap up our talk on the Titans defense after this. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final segment, next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly. As always, when Nick Frazier comes on, appreciate you doing double duty. He will be producing for Chasing Big Joe coming up next.
It's always fun.
It's always fun. We got it's been a good show. Talk some Titans, did some lies are legit, talk some college football. Again, tomorrow, Corey Curtis going to join the show for his weekly visit from News 2. And for anybody who tuned in today, hoping for Teron Davenport, he is penciled in for Thursday on the show. So, with the way the Titans maneuvered their media schedule, we've had to kind of shift things, but TD penciled in for Thursday as of right now. So excited for that. Couple more things on the Titans before we get out of here. I did see a tweet from Teron Davenport that I guess John Fossil explained why Chim DK caught the ball on that at the end of the first half, the punt that ended up setting up the near safety. John Fossil says Chim DK did the right thing fielding the punt at the Titans 7-yard line, according to the special teams coach, John Fossil. The 8-yard line is typically the cutoff spot for the returners to field the ball. However, there's variance given the hang time where the gunner is. In this case, DK was right. So Bones Fossil said that DK made the right decision there, even though all things considered, usually the 8 is where it's like, all right, let it go and hope it goes into the end zone. Where the gunner was probably determined that. If somebody's standing right there and they can field it, may not be your best choice. So apparently Chim DK did do the right thing there.
+1.
Yeah.
Check. Rookie's doing a good job.
Bones Fossil said that he didn't know if DK was ready right before that last preseason game. He looked good. I was very impressed by Chim DK as a returner on Sunday. Hopefully that continues. Also, so we were just watching, we have the Pat McAfee show on behind us here in studio, and during the break, they were talking about Cam Ward's debut. I thought what Dan Orlovsky said was really interesting. And he was talking about how, 4 fourth quarter drops, a couple of them were big 30-plus yard gains that could have changed the way that game ended up. And the phrase that got me was Dan Orlovsky saying, not on the same level of Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, but in terms of exceeding expectations, I thought he was one of the most impressive quarterbacks I watched in week 1. That's not that Dan Orlovsky is like the end-all be-all when it comes to quarterback evaluation, but that's kind of been the theme of people who know football, who have watched the film, have said, yeah, like if you're going to blame anybody for that loss, Cam Ward should probably be at the back of the line.
Yeah. Oh, Mike's not working. There we go. Yeah, exactly. Orlovsky, even though he's, played a lot of years in the league, still has that knowledge of a quarterback, and to know that he has, Cam Ward has the intangibles to be that next big thing. It's got to ring true to Titans fans. It's got to just be a nice ring to it.
Yeah, and it's why I said it earlier, don't scout box scores. You can't look at Cam Ward and say, 12 for 28, 113 yards or whatever it was. Ew, like that's how could that be a good debut? It's like, watch the game and you'll realize that he didn't put the ball in danger, that was number one. I said it on Thursday before I left that like, the one thing I want to see from Cam Ward, take care of the football. Yeah. He did that. There were no turnover-worthy throws on Sunday against Denver. And he made plays, or at least he tried to. His receivers let him down. And I'm sure there's going to be some extra time spent on the jugs machine for Calvin Ridley, Chigga-Conquo, Alec Iman, or all the guys who had ones bounce off their fingertips on Sunday.
It goes to show you, too, when, during training camp, Cam Ward would be late to the podium. It's because he's working on throwing with guys.
Right.
I mean, getting the chemistry down, but also that's extra reps for the wide receiver to just get some more, catches in. I mean, obviously after week 1, they need more catches. Like you're talking about the jugs machine. But I think it's a lot better coming from a quarterback.
Yes. Yeah. And to hear that from Dan Orlovsky, I also saw from Chase Daniel, who he's on a podcast for The Athletic, I think, with Diana Rossini.
The Scoop City.
Yes, yeah. Scoop City. He said that the Cam Ward film was fantastic. So I think it was a good start. We'll see what he can do in week 2. Again, cornerbacks it's hard to get much better than Surtain and Moss out there. Like they were locked down on Sunday. Maybe with a little bit more separation, we'll see Cam Ward get more results for the throws that he's making. Yeah. That's partial is the defense that he's facing, but also is like, your teammates got to help you out.
And I don't know if we talked about this on the air, if it was in between one of the breaks, but I think you were telling me that, I was mentioning Dre Greenlaw being out. Titans need to exploit the middle of the field. And you mentioned it. You hit the nail on the head. They did exploit the middle of the field. Just those drops were just vital, especially Ridley's drop near the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to go the dig route to Ridley, which that one was a tougher catch, but still probably should have been caught. Singleton, the single high safety, was coming down, and he got there just after the ball got to Ridley. And then the post route was the worst one at the end of the game, where it's like,
it's right in the numbers.
That puts you in field goal range. Not that you needed a field goal, but like it gave you a chance to go take a couple shots to get to the end zone and see if you could tie that game. And to have that drop in that moment, you're paying that guy too much money for him to drop that ball. It can't happen.
Minus the drops, like Denver gave them that game in a roundabout way. Like going forward on fourth and near the end game, like fourth and
two, and just throwing it 40 yards downfield.
And great field position.
I mean, like I didn't like the decision from Sean Payton, but like also Cortland Sutton could not have been more open on the other side of the field, and Bo Nix just missed him. So, it falls on both of them. But yeah, the Broncos tried to give that game away, and the Titans just didn't take it. Dustin from Hopkinsville said, might need to get a new jugs machine with more heat on the ball. Cam could take about 15% off his fastball. However, it's on the wide receiver to catch the ball if they get two hands on it. In the NFL, like I did write down yesterday, like, is Cam's pass uncatchable? Because like we haven't, or not catchable. Like I can't really buy that, because it wasn't an issue in college. It wasn't an issue in the preseason. I think it was just a bad day, but a lot of the time he has to fire it in there. Like especially the one to Chig up the seam at the end. Like if he didn't throw that on a fastball, it was going to get picked probably. So I don't know about that. Like I understand the idea of you got to have some touch and know when to throw a change up, but
put a little air under the ball.
Right. But like the times that there were drops, especially the dig to Calvin Ridley, if he didn't rip it, there was no chance of it being completed. He did exactly what he had to do, and Calvin Ridley let it bounce off his hands.
I think it's more of the guys around me to understand his pace of play.
Yeah.
Because I think that's simply it. Everybody else is running at, I'm going to say 1.25, and he's over here at 2 speed. Like that's simply it. I think Cam's just processing everything quicker.
Yeah, it's game one. I think Cam Ward looked good, but we'll see if this week of practice can help the pass catchers, the offensive line, the play callers kind of get all on the same page, and we see some improvement in week 2. That'll about do it for us. Dr. Crane, as always, thank you. Have a good show with Chase and Big Joe. Again, tomorrow on the show, the plan is Corey Curtis tomorrow for his usual Wednesday spot from News 2. We'll talk with Corey about all things Titans from week 1, what they need to do in week 2 to get to 1-1. Going to be tough with the Rams coming in here to Nissan Stadium for the first of back-to-back home games. And again, TD not in today for TD Tuesday. We're switching things around. He's going to be in Thursday is the plan. So excited for that coming up later on in the week. For Nick Frazier, for Parker Kelly, I'm Jake Lyman signing off here on Next Man Up. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. You're on 102.5 The Game.